Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. If you're new here, consider subscribing. It really helps keep these stories coming. And while you're here, let me know in the comments where you're listening from. Now, sit back, relax, and let's get into the story. I've seen things most people only hear about on the news. Raging infernos swallowing entire buildings, people trapped behind walls of flame. Accidents where seconds meant the difference between life and death, but nothing prepared me for what happened that night. The night the world changed. The call came in just after 11 p.m. A 3-story apartment complex downtown had gone up in flames. Reports said multiple people were trapped inside. My team and I suited up, hopped into the truck and raced toward the scene, sirens wailing. From the outside, it looked like any other rescue mission. Flames licked the upper floors, smoke poured from shattered windows, and panicked residents crowded the streets. What we didn't realize was that the real danger wasn't the fire. It was what was waiting inside. We pulled up to the curb, barely stopping before jumping out. My captain barked orders as we spread out, assessing the situation. The fire had started on the second floor and was spreading fast. We had maybe 10-15 minutes before the entire building was lost. I was assigned to the search team along with my partner, Diaz. We grabbed our axes, forced our way through the front entrance, and headed upstairs. Thick smoke filled the hallways, making it nearly impossible to see more than a few feet ahead. The heat was suffocating, but we'd trained for this. We knew how to push through. That's when I heard the first scream. It was different from the ones I was used to, raw, desperate, filled with something that sent a chill down my spine despite the heat. We kicked in the nearest door. Inside, a woman was cowering in the corner, pointing at something in the shadows. "Help him," she sobbed. "He won't wake up." A man was slumped against the wall, barely visible through the smoke. I rushed over, shaking his shoulder. "Sir, we need to get out of here." His head snapped toward me. His eyes were wrong, milky, unfocused. And then he lunged. I barely had time to react before he clamped his teeth onto my shoulder. Except, he didn't bite through my gear. He tried. I shoved him back, sending him sprawling across the floor. He scrambled to his feet, moving in a way that no injured person should be able to. His mouth hung open, his breathing was ragged, and his skin, it looked off. "Sir, stay back," I warned. He didn't listen. Diaz pulled me away as the man charged again. We had no choice. We ran. The woman's screams echoed behind us, but we couldn't help her. Not without backup, not without knowing what was happening. We radioed in as we made our way to the stairwell. "Chief, we have a problem," I said between breaths. That's when I heard the sound that would haunt me forever. Not the roar of the fire, not the collapsing beams. It was the sound of people running. Not away from danger, but toward it. The noise of footsteps came from the hallway below, dozens of them, pounding against the floor in a frantic, uncoordinated rush. I expected to see panicked residents trying to escape, but what I saw instead made my blood run cold. Figures emerged from the smoke, moving strangely. Some jerking like puppets with their strings tangled, others hunched over as if their limbs didn't quite work right. Their faces were barely human, their eyes vacant and cloudy. Some had burns across their arms and legs but didn't react to the pain. They weren't running from the fire. They were running toward us. "Diaz, move!" I shouted, pushing him toward the stairwell. We barely made it through the door before they reached us. I slammed it shut just as something heavy slammed against the other side. A guttural, inhuman sound rattled through the air, followed by more thuds as multiple hands pounded against the wood. "What? What was that?" Diaz panted, eyes wide behind his mask. I couldn't answer. I didn't know. The building groaned around us. The fire was spreading fast. We needed to get to the roof. We sprinted up the stairs, taking them two at a time. The heat pressed down from above. Flames licked at the walls, smoke curling around every step. My radio crackled with voices, shouts, static, confusion. I caught bits and pieces. "They're attacking people. Stay in the truck. Don't let them in. The fire isn't the only danger. Do not engage." Then a scream. And silence. We reached the top floor, but it was a dead end. Fire had already consumed most of the hallway, leaving us trapped. I tried the nearest door, but it was locked. Diaz took his axe to it. 1, 2, 3 swings, and the door burst inward. We stumbled inside just as the stairwell door below exploded open. They were coming. We barricaded the door with whatever we could find, a dresser, a desk, anything to buy time. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. The window, it was the only way out. I rushed to it, expecting to see our truck below, expecting to see my team. Instead, I saw only chaos. The streets were overrun. People were attacking each other, tearing into flesh, ignoring fire and pain and logic. The chief was still by the truck, trying to fight off someone who had latched onto his arm. His shouts turned into strangled cries, then silence. I swallowed the lump in my throat. We were on our own. Diaz and I grabbed the fire escape, climbing down as fast as we could. The metal burned against my gloves, heated by the rising flames. When we hit the second floor, the structure groaned. Then, with a sickening snap, it gave way. We crashed onto the pavement below, the wind knocked from my lungs. Pain shot through my ribs, but I couldn't stop. We had to keep moving. Diaz groaned beside me, trying to push himself up. His leg was twisted at an unnatural angle. "We have to go!" I grabbed his jacket, but he shook his head. "Can't, leg's done." Panic surged in my chest. The crowd of them was moving closer. "Go," he rasped. "Now!" I refused. "I'm not leaving you." Diaz gritted his teeth. "You don't have a choice." He reached for his radio. "Mayday, Station 1, Outbreak, send backup." The crowd fell on him before he could finish. I ran. I don't remember how long I ran, only that my legs burned and my lungs ached. The city was unrecognizable. Cars abandoned, sirens wailing, figures moving in the dark. I reached the station, hoping to find safety, but the bay doors were wide open, the trucks were gone. And inside, the only thing waiting for me was silence. I was alone, and the world as I knew it was gone. The fire station was empty, no voices, no movement. Just the distant crackle of flames and the occasional wail of sirens echoing through the ruined city. I should have felt relief. This was home base, a safe place, but all I felt was dread. I stepped inside cautiously, gripping my axe. The red emergency lights flickered against the walls, casting long shadows that seemed to move on their own. My boots crunched over broken glass and debris. Something had happened here. Something bad. I moved toward the lockers, searching for a spare radio, maybe some supplies. The city was falling apart. I needed a plan. I needed backup. That's when I heard it. A faint drip, drip, drip coming from the garage bay where the fire trucks were parked. I took a slow breath and stepped forward. The trucks were there, but they weren't empty. Bodies were slumped inside, firefighters still strapped in their seats, their helmets tilted forward like they had just dozed off. But their skin was too pale, their uniforms soaked in something dark. I stepped closer, my fingers tightening around the axe handle. One of them moved. A soft twitch, then another, a shuddered breath. The firefighter in the driver's seat, Murphy, lifted his head. His face was different, grayish. His eyes fogged over like glass, and then his mouth opened. A guttural, low groan slipped from his throat as he reached out, fingers curled like claws. I took a step back. Another figure stirred, then another. They weren't gone, not fully. I spun around just as something crashed behind me. The locker room door had slammed shut. I wasn't alone. The darkness shifted and a shape lurched forward. Another firefighter, but this one moved faster, arms flailing, hands clawing at the air. I barely raised my axe in time. He slammed into me, knocking me backward onto the concrete floor. His breath was rancid, his grip like iron. I struggled, pushing against his weight, but he was strong. Stronger than he should have been. His teeth snapped inches from my face. I did the only thing I could. I brought the axe up between us and shoved, hard. He reeled back, giving me just enough space to get my legs underneath him. I kicked with everything I had, sending him sprawling onto the floor. I scrambled to my feet, heart hammering. The others in the fire truck were stirring faster now. I had to get out. I sprinted to the supply room, my boots slipping on something wet. I didn't look down. I didn't want to know. Inside, I grabbed whatever I could. An extra radio, a flashlight, a spare oxygen tank. My hands were shaking. I knew I had seconds before. A loud thud came from behind me. I turned just in time to see Murphy dragging himself out of the truck, his legs twisted at an unnatural angle. He shouldn't have been able to move, but he did. The others followed. I bolted for the back door, throwing my weight against it. It burst open into the alley. Cold night air hit my face like a slap. But I wasn't safe. The streets were worse now. More figures roamed between abandoned cars. The fires had spread, painting the city in an eerie orange glow, and above it all, the sound that would haunt me forever. The distant, echoing screams of a city that was no longer alive. I wasn't just trying to survive anymore. I needed to escape. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe. Your support keeps these creepypastas coming. Until next time, stay alert, stay safe, and never ignore the feeling that something is watching.